Today's Nonprofit to Visit segment is sponsored by Full Swing Sports Center. Whether you want some batting practice, improve that golf swing, or bungee jump on a trampoline, there's 9,000 square feet of indoor fun to be had. That's Full Swing Sports Center, located at 2555 Crown Point Drive, right off Highway 69 in Prescott Valley.
Sitting with me today is She's the director of the Ascend School, and that's specializing in autism. It's children with autism. An interesting fact that just came out of the government, 2% of kids in the educational system right now suffer from autism. And we hear that word all the time, but why don't you tell us a little bit what autism is?
It's funny you said that, Jeff. I just saw a posting on the web this morning that was put out, that an Arizona statistic that's now saying 1 in 64 in Arizona are being diagnosed with autism. And the previous statistic being 1 in 88, which was the most recent put out nationwide, but in Arizona they're claiming as high as 1 in 64.
If you don't have an autistic child or an autistic family member, autism is kind of just a word that we hear.
Sure.
Tell us what autism is.
Autism is can be somewhat difficult to explain. It's usually diagnosed through what we call a cluster of symptoms. So it's more looking at a child and their behavior and looking at this grouping of symptoms to try to come up with a diagnosis. Typically what you're going to see is a fairly significant delay in the development of speech skills, language development, social skills, and eye contact. And then you will also usually see some type of repetitive or stereotypic behavior. You might see the kids that you see flapping or spinning or twirling.
Let's get into Ascend a little bit. Does Ascend deal with more severe cases, or is it the full spectrum?
We set out originally to probably deal with that more severe end of the spectrum, but what we're finding is that we have become kind of a microcosm here, that just because of various issues with different school districts that are in need of programs or certain kids that aren't fitting into certain programs, we actually have, over the course of the last 6 years, at different times, we have serviced children on all ends of the spectrum, from the very, very severely affected to the very, very high functioning.
One thing I noticed in the mission statement of Ascend is that you do focus in on the talents they have and a lot of positive reinforcement.
ABA by nature, applied behavioral analysis, behavioral psychology, positive behavior support, if you follow all those methodologies, it very much follows a model that we teach everything by taking a very difficult skill, breaking it down into very, very small components, and then teaching those components systematically one at a time with lots of motivation and reinforcement for every attempt at an effort toward that skill. So we really capitalize on, trying to capitalize on the motivation of each individual child first and foremost. What motivates them?
One thing I found very impressive is the teacher-student ratio. You're not getting into a classroom with 25 kids. You're basically one-on-one.
Exactly. And the students are placed appropriately at that level. Most every student here is placed in their IEP that they are provided with a one-on-one paraprofessional that's with them all day long. And they're high needs, so that they need that extra support to kind of get them through the day, and it's really important. And we find that that's how the most progress is made. And it has allowed us to take kids that were truly at a very rough spot, and with a couple of years I have had some kids be able to integrate into much. We just actually, on Monday of this week, we integrated a student back into a local school district who actually only was with us for 1 semester. But we were able to get his behavior stabilized with a lot of one-on-one attention, low sensory environment, and he was able to reintegrate back into his public school setting after 1 semester. So
which is the goal of what you're trying to do.
That is the goal of what we're trying to do, absolutely.
And here we are in Prescott. Is it just serving Prescott in its area, or?
Not at all. We are truly, I would say, we can call ourselves a Yavapai County school because we have students coming from Chino Valley, Humboldt Unified, Kirkland Elementary. We've had them from Yarnell, And we currently just accepted a student from Cottonwood that drives over from the Verde Valley, and we have had a prior student from Sedona as well. So we are even serving students from the opposite side of the mountain.
If I'm a parent with a child who has autism and he's in the public school and I want to look into Ascend, what can I do?
There's two different options of ways you can look at Ascend. You can, if things are rough or not going well within your public school setting where you're at, you have that right to call for an IEP meeting with your team, your IEP team, and discuss other alternative placement situations with your district. And you're always, as a parent, have that right to bring that up and talk about Ascend as an option. That's one way to go about it. And then the other option that's come up recently in Arizona, which is kind of an interesting thing that we've seen, is what's known as the Empowerment Scholarship Account, which is a kind of a different way of doing things, and that's available to students that have an IEP that have been within an Arizona public school, but maybe just aren't real happy with the things they're going. They have a right to actually apply for this scholarship and apply for 90% of the funding that the public school would be receiving, and then they can actually take that fund and take their student and privately place their student at a private school of their choice as a privately placed student.
You are a 501c3, and we have heard you talk about grant writing, and
Right.
I'm sure some of the schools,
Forever.
the state funding comes with some of the students, but there are a lot of probably private donations. And if somebody
Sure.
wants to help out Ascend, how do they go about doing it?
Probably the easiest way, we're set up to donate on the website. That's probably the quickest, easiest way. It's a hard time for fundraising, obviously, right now. So I love the idea that you guys have taken on about spotlighting nonprofits, because it has been challenging, obviously, in this economy for all of the nonprofits to go about their fundraising efforts. So just getting the word out is really helpful.
Of course, the donations are tax deductible.
They are tax deductible. They surely are. And we always invite people to come out and see the school. It's an interesting thing, and it definitely tugs at the heartstrings when people come out and visit. They are experiencing a whole new world that I think they may not be aware of, for sure.
Well, I know that you've tugged at our heartstrings,
Well,
so
that's
we
great.
want to thank you
Well, thank
and
you.
your staff for all the wonderful work they do.
Well, they are amazing. I am in awe of what they do every day. Every day.
We want to thank Angie Levin and her wonderful staff and all the great work they do here at Ascend. Be sure to join us next week when we'll have another segment on NPTV right here on Meet the Merchants.